Welcome to the first episode of Gingrich and the Cosmonewts, a multi-part series of great space exploration. In the year 2035, once high-powered politician Newt Gingrich and a band of heroes known as the Cosmonewts went to form a base on the Earth's moon. During their construction, however, they accidentally uncovered an ancient wormhole generator from a distant galaxy. Now, impossibly far from Earth, Newt and his three companions, Mathew McConaughey, Kid Newt, and the highly intelligent cybernetic Miss Lang, must fight for survival, get along with the locals, and attempt to one day find their way home. Newt log. It's been 3 days since we've encountered any form of life. We've refueled our ship a while ago at an old interspace gas station. Still unsure of how my credit card works around here, but I won't argue their ways. The captain of the ship known as the True Patriot monologued, as he sat in a massive captain's chair and ate from a bag of Funyuns. He tried to ignore the grunts of the incredibly ripped and almost constantly shirtless Mathew McConaughey, who was doing chin-up after chin-up in the doorway to the control room. According to our ship's computers and the navigation of Miss Lang, we should be arriving to a planet within the next few hours. The only knowledge we have of this planet is that it is very windy and is inhabited by mostly large slug-like creatures known as the Rilacs. Newt was going to continue talking until he was interrupted by the ship shaking violently and an alarm going off. Miss Lang rose from her chair and faced Newt in her overly sensuous spacesuit that revealed almost everything, including her robotic right arm and a few cords leading from the side of her neck to the small of her back. Her left eye was a bright green and looked like that of a radar system. "Sir, we are under attack from another ship," she announced, and Newt braced himself in his chair. "Battle stations, everyone. This isn't our first rodeo," he ordered coolly. Mathew quickly ran to the chair with two handles on the armrest, both with triggers and red buttons. "Miss Lang, connect me to their communications," Newt ordered, as a large screen appeared in front of him. "Connecting now, sir. Visuals and audio translations up and running," the cybernetic genius replied, as a grotesque creature appeared on the screen. It gurgled as a form of speech, but the ship's translation put the words into fluent English. "You're in our turf, asshole," the creature roared. It had catfish whiskers above its suction cup mouth, bulging eyes that were glazed over in a mucus, and a strange mohawk of spiky hair. "We're just passing through. We're landing on the planet Ghidorah for supplies. We have no quarrel with you," Newt replied, keeping an open hand towards Mathew as a signal to hold fire. "Stupid Earthlings! My ship will tear yours apart like toilet paper," the enemy roared as Newt simply glared at him. "If that's the way you want it," he growled, "then suck it from America!" He suddenly shouted and gave the fist pump as Mathew nodded and began firing wildly. The True Patriot, during the conversation, had maneuvered behind the enemy, and Mathew sent several lasers into and around the ship. "Sir, second ship approaching," Miss Lang suddenly announced as Newt growled without any warning. Something... Something flew through the control room screaming, "Gna!" Newt ducked as he saw the being land on the ground in front of him. It was short, about 3 feet tall, extremely obese, and always wore its red and black spacesuit with the helmet visor always on. "Out of the way, Kid Newt!" Captain Newt screamed and sent a hefty kick into the being's body, punting it into the air. Mathew chuckled as he fired more rounds into the first ship's engine, when suddenly the True Patriot began shaking. "We've been hit, sir, by the second ship," Miss Lang announced. "Damage is minor, but it's increasing quickly." "Then get us away from 'em," Newt ordered. "Full speed escape," he shouted as Miss Lang nodded and pushed the thrusters as far as she could. The ship blasted away, but the enemy gave chase. Miss Lang drove the ship into a series of corkscrews as Newt, Mathew, and she remained in their chairs, but Kid Newt rolled through the air uncontrollably, screaming the entire time. The ship hit the brakes and quickly went into a loop as the enemy passed under them. "Ah, oldest trick in the book." Mathew chuckled calmly and aimed the ship's weapons, firing its lasers into the enemy's engines. "Enemy ship pulling away, sir," Miss Lang announced. However, our damage has increased and needs immediate repair, or we will be forced to crash land. Death before dishonor, Newt whispered as the crew was silent. That does not apply right now, Mathew replied from his gun station as Kid Newt was trying to grab a Coke from Mathew's cup holder, but his short, fat fingers made it nearly impossible. Mathew swatted the child's hands away, who then sat in the middle of the control room and found a stack of wooden blocks to play with. What can we repair during flight? Newt asked Miss Lang, who quickly scanned over the ship and looked at the captain. The fridge. What? Newt roared. The light went out last night in the fridge. That is the only thing that can be fixed during flight, she replied matter-of-factly to Newt, who just held his head. Fine. Full speed, we will land on planet Ghidorah. Yeah, sula, sikisha. Kid Newt growled and chuckled as he smashed his block structure down upon a few army men and began beating the plastic toys into the ship's floor until they became nothing but pieces. Newt was about to scold the child when he heard Miss Lang announce, Entering the planet's atmosphere now, sir. Is there any way we can land without crashing it? Newt asked, buckling himself into his chair, as Kid Newt tried to crawl on his lap, but the captain shoved him off and back to the floor. Kid Newt crawled to Mathew, who sighed and buckled the child under his own seatbelt with him. Not really, sir. There's a chance we could land it safely, but it's a 15% chance, Miss Lang answered. I've gambled worse. Brace yourselves, Newt warned as the ship began shaking through the atmosphere. The planet of Ghidorah was mostly seafoam green, and hardly any large bodies of water. As the ship shook and careened towards the ground below, Miss Lang did her best to keep it steady, or somewhat of a set course. Foomlacht, 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 Kid Newt kept shouting happily while bouncing on Mathew, who gripped his seat tightly, trying not to shake violently. Activating ship's gliding wings and beginning reverse thrust, Miss Lang announced as Newt just replied with an unsure, okay. The ship began jerking uncontrollably as the planet's fierce winds threatened to send it spiraling helplessly, but Miss Lang's cybernetic strength kept the steering straight. Activating landing gear and emergency parachutes, she growled intensely, hitting buttons as Newt fell to his seat, and felt his seatbelt begin to tighten. Kid Newt was mumbling something wildly as Mathew was shaking and jerking about in his chair. Newt gritted his teeth as he felt his seatbelt tightening once more, making a loud stretching sound as it tried to hold on to his 280-pound girth. The ship slammed into a hillside field of bright blue flowers that somehow worked like an excellent cushion. The ship skidded across the field, going at a downward angle, as the landing gear wheels broke and flew into the air. Miss Lang gritted her teeth as the ship hit a large rock and ramped into the air before crashing back down into the flowers. There's a cliff up there, Newt growled, seeing a drop-off quickly advancing towards them. The ship was still skidding at an almost 90-degree angle when it suddenly slammed against a pile of rocks, nose first, lifting the back end of the ship towards the sky. The ship groaned loudly before staying stuck, with the back end in the air, as Miss Lang let out a long exhale of relief. She turned just in time to hear a loud slap as Newt's seatbelt suddenly broke. Oh no. She sighed just in time to get slammed against the windshield by the large captain falling out of his seat and body slamming into her. Sir, she whispered under the crushing weight of the captain against the ship's windshield. Yeah, he asked, embarrassed but unable to move. We've landed, she replied. That's real good, Newt sighed. To be continued in Part 2.